I'm Doug Thompson of BDS Productions, and thanks for joining us for another We Are Branson, and we miss you. And our special guest today is Reza, and he's in Branson, and we've known Reza for quite a while, and he is a very, very special young man, young by our standards. And Reza, you were in our area in the middle of Kansas a number of years ago. Was the first time I met you. It was the first time my brother met you. And Roger's off screen right now, so as we're talking about this, well, Roger can hear us. But most people don't know this about you. And one of the things that I am so impressed with the entertainers in Branson is how much they love their fans. And that's why we chose this title, We Are Branson, and We Miss You. Well, the We Miss You means the entertainers are missing their fans because they love to interact with the fans, and the fans are missing the entertainers.
So awesome.
It was so cool. I've never seen anything like that.
I'm just still in shock.
No idea.
Thank you very much and welcome to the show. How y'all feeling?
Everybody we've told about this show.
I loved it, and he was very funny.
It's amazing. He's legit. It's the best.
No way! Let me see this.
I don't know how he does it. Do not miss out.
I'm just kidding. I would not let Lillian do that without being blindfolded.
Our listeners have been hearing us talk about this for the last couple weeks. I think there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of chatter, a lot of buzz about the show.
Awesome.
It was great.
It was awesome. Yeah, it's really mind-blowing.
It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Particularly well how much you enjoy the fans, because I've seen you after a show. We've been at the same locations where you've done multiple shows, and I've seen how you interact with the people afterwards. And it doesn't matter if it's that 6-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid that says, hey, pick a card, or if it's somebody that's 60 years old and said, I got into this and I'm working on this. And I've seen you take the time and spend hour or more afterwards, whatever time it takes. I've never seen you go off and leave somebody that's waiting in line for that. And the way that we got to meet you here was you were coming into Junction City, Kansas for a show, and you stopped by a nursing home. You wasn't scheduled for anything. You just got off interstate, went to the nursing home, and at that nursing home that day, Roger was visiting a relative of ours, and so he got to meet you. And that led to the situation where you guys came out, parked the bus out here, took the van, you went and did the laundry. And the last thing you told me, you said, well, Doug, aren't you worried that, man, we're taking your van, and what if we don't come back? And I said, Reza, you left the bus. You used to own this bus. And you said Elvis. You remember that?
Oh, we were in the Elvis bus at that point.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that was many years ago.
That's a long time ago. That's a long time ago. But the important part about that was that you had taken the time, get off interstate, to go into a nursing home and to share some of your work with those people who would never have been able to go to a show. And that speaks volumes for you. Now, I've bragged on you quite a bit, but that's what I always do for the entertainers, because all of the entertainers that we've dealt with in Branson have all been so concerned with what their fans are doing. And I know that's the same situation for you. You're used to working hard. So what do you got going right now?
Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction, and let me pay that compliment back to you and to Roger. You know, we meet a lot of people, and it takes something special for someone to stick out, you know, in your mind because of kindness, you know, and you guys just extended so much kindness to us. You allowed us to come, and I think we probably had a bus full of people at that time on a long tour, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
You know, I traveled with more people at that time. Now we probably travel with 6 or 7 people on the tour bus. It's more minimized, but I think at that point we probably had a dozen people crammed in on this 40-foot bus, and that bus wasn't like what we're able to travel in today. I don't think it had much of any amenities within it. And you guys just said, hey, on a day off, come plug into our shore power, and allowed us to come spend time at your museum and socialize. And, you know, that's just such a huge thing, you know, just to open your home and your warehouse, you know, to this traveling group of people. So I appreciate that. And as far as, you know, stopping that nursing home, you know, that was, I remember that day, and we try and do that whenever possible. I've stopped into hospitals and children's hospitals and nursing homes. They're so appreciative, you know, because they don't get that type of thing very often. And to put a smile on someone's face, you know, that's such a valuable thing. So I don't deserve any praise. You know, it's rewarding to us to be able to go in and do those situations. But yeah, thank you so much for, you know, not only what you did at that time for us, just to kind of give us a great day off, but there's so many times where you guys have pulled in, we're at a theater in the area, and you guys have brought us some goodies and some treats, and you know, that stuff goes a long way. So
it's been our pleasure.
You guys are great people.
I appreciate that too. Well, so you're in Branson right now. Now what happens?
Well, no one knows, you know, and that's the thing, is some people have opinions, but no one knows for sure. So what we're united with is the fact that everybody wants to get back to normal. There's just different thoughts on how soon that's safe, you know, to do so. So there's been some new developments in the last couple of days where they're allowing a certain reopening process here. So there's a lot of discussion over that. I don't have all the latest details, you know, to be able to share that confidently here, but I know there's a plan in place to be able to get back to normal as soon as possible.
And when you go back to work in Branson, where are you going to be?
So this is my either 4th or 5th theater. I'm at the Branson Famous Theater now. And so we share it with the Baldnopper Show. And also Doug Gabriel has joined the theater, or will be joining the theater now. He was set to join earlier, but of course all this is delayed, the opening. So it'll be the 3 of us able to share the theater. I started out at, let's see here, Music City Center. I moved to the Starlight Theater. So I guess this is only the 3rd theater in town. I think it's our 6th season, so time flies by. So yeah, this is kind of become, it started with limited engagements here in Branson, and I want to say our season started 2014 or so with about 70 shows in Branson, and over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, we've grown that to about 200 shows a year in Branson. That's in addition to 100 or more shows, depending on the season, on tour, nationally, internationally, and other projects such as television and all that. So collectively, it's a lot, but Branson's been a really cool thing for us, not just because of the tourism here, which is great and allows us to have more of a stable being and a stable life where we can, you know, go home every night and have a better balance, you know, in our lives rather than touring and traveling all the time. But it's also a great hub to travel out of, you know, different than Vegas or Atlantic City or other places. It's so centrally located that we can do a show here in Branson and literally walk off stage, get into the tour bus, where dinner's waiting, and so we can, you know, go immediately, you know, shower in the bus, do all those things. We literally walk off the stage, do what we'd otherwise do at home, wake up halfway across the country and be able to perform a show there, and then head on back to Branson again the following day. And that's not possible in a lot of places. I mean, it is, but it would take a whole different set of logistics. You know, we'd have to fly in and deal with all the delays and instability of, you know, air travel and shipping things and all those, you know, unknowns. So to be able to travel like we do and go in and out, and not only be able to see the fans here in Branson, but take it to where they are as well and deliver the magic, you know, other places. It's been a real blessing to us to be here.
Yeah, and you know, we've always been proud of the fact that you get into the bus, you take off, you go anywhere, and when we catch up to you, sometimes it's, well, where you at? Well, I'm not sure where we're at right now, but you know, well, this is where we're supposed to be. And you guys are set up to travel, and you do it all the time. But let me go back. You're, of course, an illusionist, and your show is absolutely fantastic. I hear that repeatedly from other entertainers, and I hear it from the fans that go up, and because we always recommend some shows to go see simply because we know the people well, and we always get feedback, and this man, Reza is absolutely amazing, and that's true. That's true. We've been at multiple shows, have no idea how you do some of this. We've even helped you unload the trailer and help set everything up, and then afterward, we look at it. I have no idea how he did any of this, but it's absolutely amazing. How is it that a young kid growing up in Brookings, South Dakota, winds up being an illusionist, world-class illusionist? How does that happen?
A dream and the support from people close to me, specifically my family. But then beyond that, you know, my teachers, just the whole community in general in South Dakota, where I grew up, a little place called Brookings, South Dakota. They were so supportive of this young kid that had this dream. So it takes both, you know, it takes having that passion, and it also takes nurturing that. So I started at the age of 6. My parents bought me a magic kit after I saw a magician perform at my school, and they just encouraged me. I mean, at that point I couldn't drive, so they had to drive me to the shows, and you know, all those things you don't really think about, you know, having to do, you know, and having to have the help to do the business side of things, you know, show business. People don't realize how important the business is. You know, my dad took the time, and he used to manage bands. Now he's in real estate, so he has a tremendous amount of wisdom when it comes to contracts, negotiations, all those types of things. And, you know, he taught me early on how to do it myself, you know, and there was some kind of tough love there because he would make me do things myself with this help. Like, why don't you, you know, do it for me in a sense? You know, is your mentality as a kid, you know, you want things done for you. And then later you look back and you realize how important it was for him to have those lessons taught to me at an early age, how to do that. And, you know, he'd always say, you know, when I'm gone, you need to be able to do it yourself and have the knowledge to do it yourself. And so I think I attribute a lot of success that I've been blessed to have because of the early start and because of what my parents helped me to learn. And now there's lessons I learn every day, and I wish I would have learned these lessons 20 years ago. You know, those are the valuable ones that you can, you know, put to work for a greater period of time. So it was all that stuff. But 14 years old, I got to come to Branson for the first time and take the knowledge that I had gained prior to that and put it into an internship that I had here in town. And that changed the game for me because I did an opening act for a morning show here in town. And they're still here today, which says something about, you know, a show here in Branson. So many shows come and go. It's Denny Urie and Sheila Renee. At that point, they were the sweethearts of Branson. Now they have a different type of show. And so I opened for them, and then I did, I think, an opening act in an afternoon show that was also doing evenings as well. So some days I literally do 3 shows a day, you know, and I didn't have that kind of opportunity prior to that. I would do a couple shows a month, 3, you know, so to be able to do it every single day. But then what I would do is I'd also film those shows, even though they're just opening acts. Eventually those opening acts led to a spot in a show, and then 2 spots in a show, and then I had my own show eventually. So there's a progression there. But even when it was just a simple, just 5 minutes here, I'd film that, and every night I go home, I would watch that footage, and I would say, how could this be better? And at the time, it was terrible. And I still have that footage. And looking back, it's awful, but you have to have a starting point. And in sports, it's so common to watch the game footage. That's just natural. But I think a lot of entertainers have a certain sense of ego about them. And they think, oh, well, they applauded, or they got a standing ovation, so it's good enough. And the ego stops the progression. And by continually refining, what we do as entertainers and figuring out how to make it better and improve every single time, that's how you can grow, and that's how you cannot be stagnant. And my goal is to always give audiences something, new. So not just improving the show, but figuring out how can we change this, so when someone comes back to see the show a second or third or fourth time, they're seeing new things every time. And so that was really important, to be able just to do the repetition of it, and especially at the age of 14. So I left that with years and years of experience in literally just a summer.
Well, that's awesome. And that accounts for why it is that you are so fond of young kids coming up, because you were one of those young kids. And that's why you're spending the time, 14-year-old, 6-year-old, learning it, falling in love with the skill that you had, the good Lord gave to you. And that's why you spend the time afterwards for that young kid that's, you can see them, they're standing back there kind of shy, afraid to approach you, and you recognize it. You got something for me? Come here. I've seen you do that. And that just speaks volumes, because you know what they're going through. Maybe
I was that kid.
Yeah.
It's always the last person in line, because just as I did at that time, you want to see if you can gain a few more moments of attention from that entertainer. And so the last person in line, I always look to see if they have a pack of playing cards in their pocket, or something. And and I remember when I was that kid, and I would wait and I'd perform a trick for a performer, and their response to that was so meaningful to me. And I remember one performer who I really looked up to, and he said, wow, that fooled me. I have no idea how you did that trick. And now looking back, he knew exactly how I did it. But at the time, that felt so empowering. And I took that on as fuel, to do better and try more. And, had he have said, yeah, kid, I saw that yesterday, but good job, and less than that, it would have changed the dynamic for me entirely and my motivation at that point. So now I always keep that in mind. And, and if someone isn't as polished, I'm not going to give them a false sense of hope, but I'll give them encouragement, right, so that I'm continually building up the next generation of performers, rather than seeing them as either insignificant or future competition or any of those types of things. I think that it's important to continually pass that torch on and build other people up.
I agree, and thank you for doing that. Share with us some of the places that you have performed at, because you are one of the few in Branson that are set up and go travel as much as you do. Like you mentioned, I may do 200 shows in Branson. I may turn around to be on the road for another 100 shows. Where are some of the places that you have performed at that others would recognize the names of?
We've performed Hard Rock casinos. We've performed, of course, in Vegas and places like that. But Mexico is a special place for us. We did, I think, 40 some shows there prior to coming to Branson, in an arena, Acapulco, Mexico, and over, I think, 150,000 or more people collectively throughout those shows there. So that was prior to coming to Branson. And on tour, we've toured to Bermuda several times, in the Bahamas. I think we've done 5 sold-out shows in Bermuda. There was one point that I was in Bermuda over the course of a year, more than I was in my own hometown, which was sad. New York, this epidemic here, unfortunately, has impacted outside of Branson for us more than Branson. We have had to reschedule a handful of shows in Branson, but it actually fell significantly during our touring season. So we were set to be in Florida for I think 2 weeks, and then upper United States around the Michigan. I think we were then going to New York. Yeah, that's what it was. So yeah, from the Midwest, we actually had a solid week in New York. And so all that has been placed on the back burner now. We've had television shows. I was in Nashville. That's right. I was another one that had to cancel in Nashville. So there's been a lot of impact, and people are, scrambling to make the best of an awful situation. But those are all the places that we're going to be, rescheduling and getting back to whenever it's safe. And it's different for each area. New York was the hardest hit, of course, and they're the only ones on this tour that haven't been able to give us an exact date of when it will be safe to do so again. It might be 2 years out. We don't know.
Yeah, they're going through a lot there, no doubt. And of course, you were on Duck Dynasty. That must have been a fun experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great show. I think it was the 11th season, and to have that many seasons of a television show is quite significant. So yeah, I was able to do that show. I started off as a consultant to do some engineering on some magical kinds of things that were going to be taking place on the show. And the more that we spoke about what could happen, I said it would be a lot easier if I could be there, on site rather than just consulting. And then so it went from that to not only being on site and kind of directing some stuff to then being a part of the show and a cast member for the final season. So it was really cool. They wrote a great script, but those guys don't go off script. There's like any reality show, there's parameters and, hey, let's try and do this and that. But when I go back and read some of the script and watch the episode, they do their own thing, which I respect, quite a bit. A lot of shows, don't do that. So it keeps it very much real. So it was a great experience to be a part of that. And other things that have happened, since then, I think I attribute to that show or shows like it. Penn and Teller Fool Us is another show that people always say, I saw you on that, show. And so, it's really cool to be a part of, those types of things.
And Reza, the group that travels with you, those who, are part of the show, how are they holding up?
Just staying strong. I think everyone sees the light at the end of the tunnel right now. I know a lot of the people who have other skill sets. You've seen the show a number of times, but there's a gentleman at the beginning that eats fire and does fire acts. So he right away, said, hey, if I can teach people how to do that, I'll go on Skype and teach you how you fire. Well, that might not be a fantastic idea to do that over a computer. It might not be safe. But his mindset was, hey, let's make the best of this. How can I use what we still have to go out? And I have another amazing act in the show who tours with us. Her name is Sean Wilson. Her grandfather was one of the first magician to ever have a television show. So he is the one that inspired people like David Copperfield. He was the very first. Wow. So this is his granddaughter now. But she's using this time. She called me and said, hey, I've got some stuff that when we left tour, she does hoops and aerials and stuff. She said, I have that stuff still with you. Could I get it? Because her mindset is, let's put these things to work and, go outside and still work on the craft. And so I respect that, with my team having that attitude of, well, there's some limitations, but what can we still do? And how can we still, interact with people or better our art form or those kinds of things. So that's my team, and I'm very proud of them.
Yeah. Is the family being safe in South Dakota?
Yes, they are. They're doing great as well. We've been very blessed to not be impacted directly by any of this in terms of the health standpoint. But this is something that no matter how you're impacted, you are impacted. Every single person, not only in Branson or in the country, but, in the world. So it's really cool to see the unity that everybody has taken from this. And so I think at the end of it, we'll all be different, I think, in a better way as well.
You have one of the props that you use, and I know that you make it available to the public afterwards, a coloring book that you kind of participated in designing.
Yeah, that was one of the first tricks that I saw, and it's common, so most people may have seen it, but it's a coloring book you flip through and the pages are blank, and then the lines appear and the pictures appear, and then they become colored. There's many versions of it out there. It's probably one of the most common tricks, you know, after a magic kit that a magician gets next. And the one that I had wasn't very relatable, and that was the problem. It was a great trick, but the pictures were of clowns and just things that didn't necessarily connect to me. And I thought others might feel that way as well. So we created a custom coloring book that I had one of my good friends who's an artist depict different portions of the show that people can relate to. That's my whole idea, you know, with this is figuring out how to connect to people with magic. And so most of my tricks don't revolve around, you know, these samurai swords and sparkly boxes and top hat and tails and doves. I mean, to some people, those are what in their makeup, but for me, you know, it's out of my character to use those types of things. So I figure out how can I adapt those magical items to things that not only I can relate to, but other people can relate to. So it becomes magic with things like spray paint and power tools and those types of things. So anyway, we created this coloring book with those different moments from the show that I think people can relate to, and it's been the best seller of anything that I've put out since. I don't know how many. Literally tens of thousands of those coloring books are out there now. So yeah, it's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, everybody loves them. And Reza, thank you so much for talking with me today. And always enjoy reconnecting with you because you're just special to us. And want you to stay safe in Branson. I know you want to get back to work as soon as you can. Everybody does. And when you get out on the road, when you're in this area, you stop by and see us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. And thank you, Roger, as well. I hope you can hear us. You guys are special people to us. I appreciate you.
Appreciate that. You've been watching We Are Branson, and we miss you.